What's the point of wearing ashes on your forehead if you're sleeping next to the very things that grieve the Holy Spirit inside your soul? Read that again. I'm not talking about the big sins, the ones you confess on your knees before the priest. I'm talking about the quiet ones, the ones that sit on your shelf, breathe inside your closet, glow from your nightstand at 2 in the morning. Because here's the truth, nobody's saying out loud this Ash Wednesday, your bedroom isn't just a room, it's spiritual ground. And right now, without knowing it, you may have handed the enemy the keys. Padre Pio didn't look at the ashes on your forehead. He looked at what you were hiding in your drawers. Sometimes he sent people away without absolution, not to condemn them, to protect them, because to receive a sacrament while carrying a hidden poison, he believed, does not heal the soul. It deepens the wound. That warning is alive today, right now, for you. Because Ash Wednesday isn't simply a ritual with gray dust on your skin. It's the opening of a door, a 40-day walk through the desert. And if you step through that door carrying the weight of these 9 things in your bedroom, things you may not even realize are dangerous, your Lent will be nothing more than a beautiful mask on a house that hasn't been swept clean. So stay with me until the very end, because I'm about to walk you through 9 specific things that Padre Pio, with his extraordinary spiritual sight, warned could block the grace of God from entering your most intimate space. Your bedroom, the place where your soul is most unguarded, the place where you sleep, where you dream, where every wall you've built during the day falls away. If this is already stirring something in you, if you can already think of something in that room that doesn't belong, write down below, "I clean my house and my soul." It's a declaration, an act of faith. Let the angels see it. Are you ready? Let's begin. There's a small town in southern Italy, tucked into the mountains of Foggia, called San Giovanni Rotondo. Picture it, the stone streets, the ancient chapel rising over the terracotta rooftops, the smell of olive trees and incense rolling out from the heavy wooden doors every morning at 5 a.m. Still dark outside, frost on the cobblestones, and already, a line of people stretching from the church door, down the hill and around the corner, wrapped in coats, clutching rosaries, barely whispering. They came with bags, with letters, with objects, with questions that had no answer anywhere else on earth. And every single day, Padre Pio looked at what they brought, the visible and the invisible, and saw things they hadn't told him, hadn't told anyone. Which brings us to the first thing you must remove. Gifts from people who carry resentment or ill intent. There's a story, passed down through the women who served in the friary, of a man who traveled from the north of Italy to ask Padre Pio for a blessing on a crucifix, a beautiful one. Hand-carved wood, painted gold, with fine detail. He held it out with reverence. Padre Pio looked at it for a long moment. Then he looked at the man, and he asked simply, "Who gave you this?" The man froze. He explained it had been a gift from a business partner, a colleague he'd had a legal dispute with, someone who, when the dispute was settled, had sent this beautiful crucifix as what seemed like a gesture of peace. Padre Pio handed it back without blessing it. "That peace," he said quietly, "is not in this wood." He instructed the man to dispose of the object and purchase a new one, and not to keep anything in his home, given by hands whose heart he was not certain of. The man was shaken. He'd had that crucifix hanging over his bed for 2 years, and for 2 years, he told those who asked, his sleep had been restless, his dreams disturbing, his relationship with his wife slowly eroding. You might be thinking, isn't that superstition? I understand the hesitation, but Padre Pio wasn't superstitious, he was precise. He understood something our modern minds resist. Objects carry the spiritual residue of the intention behind the hands that gave them. This isn't magic, It's the same principle Scripture uses when it warns about the contagion of sin, about open doors, about the invisible inheritance we pass through our choices. The love of a mother placed in a hand-knitted blanket is real, and so is the resentment of an enemy placed in a beautiful gift. Look at your shelves tonight. That decoration, that frame, that figurine someone gave you. Who gave it? And what was truly living in their heart when they handed it over? If you feel the faintest unease, don't dismiss it. That unease is a grace. The second thing is harder because it's more personal, more intimate. Clothes from a past life of sin. Not just old clothes you don't wear anymore. The jacket you wore the night you made a decision you still carry shame over. The dress from a relationship that was everything God told you to walk away from. The hoodie from the years when you were running. From family, from God, from yourself. These clothes don't just take up space in your closet. They take up space in your memory. And memory, when it's unhealed, becomes a doorway. Padre Pio repeated this to his spiritual children again and again. The past has power only to the degree that you give it a home. And a home can be a thought. It can be a habit. It can be a pile of clothes on a shelf you haven't touched in years, but also can never quite bring yourself to throw away. Some people hold on to these things like a secret insurance policy, as if keeping the clothes from that old life means keeping a door slightly open, just in case the cross becomes too heavy. God isn't asking you to be ashamed of who you were. He's asking you to stop building a shrine to it. Ash Wednesday is the funeral of your old self. Dress accordingly. This next one requires real tenderness because I don't want anyone to hear me wrong. There is no shame in medicine. There is no shame in caring for your body and your mind. Padre Pio himself endured physical suffering so severe that doctors were baffled, and he cooperated with them when he could. He wasn't an enemy of science. But there's a specific kind of medication use, and you may already know which kind I mean, that isn't about healing. It's about numbing, about making the voice of God quieter, about softening the edges of the cross so you don't have to feel the splinters. Padre Pio's testimony, his radical, almost infuriating testimony, was not, "I survived the pain." It was, "I welcomed it." His own body was a wreck of suffering. He couldn't lift his arms to consecrate the Eucharist without pain visible on his face, cold sweat on his forehead, his breath careful and shallow. Those close to the altar on difficult mornings could hear the faintest sound, something between a sigh and a groan, escaping him as he elevated the host, his wounded hands trembling under the fingerless gloves. And still he prayed. Still he served. Still he stood. If you have substances in your room whose only purpose is to keep you from feeling the weight of your own soul, ask yourself honestly what Lent is calling you toward. Not to suffer for suffering's sake, but to stop medicating the very pain that God is using to remake you. Friends, I want to pause here for just a moment because I know how heavy all of this can feel when you're walking it alone. Maybe these words are landing somewhere tender tonight. Maybe you're already seeing your bedroom through different eyes. If these stories about Padre Pio are touching your heart, if you're hungry to understand the greatest weapon he used every single day, even on the days his hands were bleeding, even on the nights his room felt like a battlefield, I've prepared something specifically for you. It's called The Power of the Rosary, with Padre Pio, miracles, protection, and divine graces. This spiritual treasure is going to help you pray the rosary with real depth and understanding, not just words on a page. You'll discover the miracles and testimonies of those who've already felt its power, people in situations just as desperate as yours. You'll learn Padre Pio's most powerful teachings and convictions about prayer. You'll receive a 30-day prayer guide with daily intentions to strengthen your faith step by step, and you'll have access to special prayers for protection, healing, and liberation. The Rosary was Padre Pio's great weapon. He held it in his hands until the beads wore smooth. He prayed it on his knees when his knees were agony. He placed it in the hands of every soul who came to him in despair. And today, it can be yours too. Don't miss this. Click the link pinned in the comments below to download it. Now back to the room. Because we've only gotten through 3 things, and some of the most dangerous ones are still ahead. Open your drawer, not the top one, the deep one, the one you haven't really opened in months. What's in there? Letters, messages, old notes, maybe a handwritten piece of paper you've folded and refolded so many times the creases are soft as cloth. Maybe printed screenshots from a conversation that destroyed something you loved. Maybe a single sentence written in someone else's hand that you've read so many times you have it memorized, word for word, even though each time you read it, it takes something from you. You've kept it, not because it gives you peace, because you're not done being wounded, because on the hardest days, something in you reaches for it the way a person presses on a bruise, half to confirm it's still there, half to keep the pain from fading before justice arrives. There's a woman whose story has been told in Catholic communities for generations. She came to San Giovanni Rotondo carrying exactly this kind of wound. Her sister had betrayed her, deeply, publicly, with permanent consequences. She had not spoken to her sister in 11 years. She came to Padre Pio not to seek healing from it, but almost to have it confirmed, to hear the holy man say, "Yes, what was done to you was unforgivable. You are right to hold this." She stood before him. She hadn't even finished speaking before he looked at her with those quiet, heavy eyes and said something she didn't expect. "You are the one in chains, not her." She started to protest. He raised his hand gently. "The one who offended you has moved on. You are the one who has built a cell out of her name and gone inside and locked the door." She left weeping, not from sorrow, from the terrifying freedom of being seen completely. She went home. She burned the letters. She called her sister, not because what her sister had done was suddenly okay, but because she understood for the first time that carrying the record of someone else's sin in her own chest was destroying no one but herself. Burn those letters, not out of rage, out of mercy for yourself. Forgiveness isn't the feeling that what they did was acceptable. Forgiveness is the decision to stop giving them rent-free space inside your spirit, to stop being the one who stays in the cell. And now, the most present-day danger of them all. Your phone, your laptop, the screen that glows in the dark at 2 a.m. when sleep won't come. Padre Pio demanded what he called the golden silence. He protected the hours before prayer the way a soldier guards the entrance to a king's chamber. He rose before the sun, before food, before conversation, before a single word of human noise. He was in the chapel, on his knees, in the dark, with God. What's the first thing you reach for when you wake up? That question isn't an accusation, it's a mirror. Whatever you feed your spirit in those first 5 minutes of the morning sets the frequency for your entire day. And if the first voice your soul hears is a notification, a headline, or someone's curated and perfect-looking life on a screen, you are starting your day already fighting noise that your prayer will have to wrestle against for hours. This Lent, protect the silence. Guard it like it's sacred, because it is. This one is uncomfortable, I know it. The Greek eye on your wall, the crystal on your nightstand placed right beside your rosary, the good luck bracelet worn alongside your scapula, the stone someone recommended because it promotes peace and balance. In your mind, these things coexist. You're not choosing one over the other, you're just being safe, covering all the bases. Padre Pio had a word for it. Spiritual adultery. When you stand at the altar of God and also have a talisman under your pillow for protection, you are telling God with your hands and your feet that you don't fully trust Him, that the blood of Christ is enough for your soul, but maybe not quite enough for your luck. He was merciless about this kind of spiritual mixing, not out of coldness, but because he understood the damage it does to the interior life. It creates, he said, a fog, a dense, quiet fog between the soul and God. And prayer through fog is exhausting, hollow and uncertain. Look at your nightstand. Is there anything there that you trust for protection that isn't the cross? God made beauty. The Psalms overflow with it, but there is a vanity that goes deeper than the surface. The vanity that whispers, this body is the most important thing about me. This face is my value. And if these things age, if they decay, if they stop turning heads, I've lost everything that matters. Padre Pio wore the same coarse brown habit every day of his life. His hands were wrapped in gloves over wounds that never closed. He wasn't impressive to look at. Small, often in pain, unhurried by anything the world called beautiful, because he had seen in prayer what the soul looks like, what actually lasts, what the body is actually for. On Ash Wednesday, the priest looks you in the eyes and says, "Remember that you are dust, and to dust you shall return." That's not meant to humiliate you, it's meant to free you. The body is beautiful, and the body is temporary, and its purpose is to carry the soul home. Is there something in your bedroom that has quietly become more important than that truth? Now I want to tell you something that will make some of you genuinely uncomfortable. Good. Discomfort is sometimes the beginning of conversion. In 1956, Padre Pio opened a hospital in the mountains of Foggia. Not a clinic, not a small ward, a full hospital. Modern, large, equipped with the best doctors and equipment of its era. He called it Casa Sollievo della Sofferenza, the home for the relief of suffering. And every single stone of it was built by what the world would call a miracle, funded almost entirely by people who gave what they had and trusted that God would multiply what remained. There is a documented account of a wealthy industrialist from Milan who came to San Giovanni Rotondo and pledged a significant donation to the hospital's construction, then went home and did not send it. Weeks passed, months. The project was stalled. Materials couldn't be purchased. Workers waited. Padre Pio, who had no telephone and rarely wrote letters, somehow reached this man's circle. Word came back, the man had suffered a series of business reversals and was quietly hoping the pledge would be forgotten. When the two finally met again, Padre Pio didn't accuse him. He simply looked at him and said, in a voice those nearby described as both soft and devastating, "The money you promised was never truly yours. It was passing through your hands on its way to the poor. When you held it back, you were holding back something that didn't belong to you." The man reportedly left the room pale. The donation arrived within the week. This is the nature of money held tight while need cries outside your door. It doesn't just sit in your wallet. It sits on your conscience. It sits between you and God. It draws the attention of heaven, but not the kind you're hoping for. This Lent is the season of the open hand. A fasting from food, yes, but also from the illusion that your security lives in what you can count. Is the money in your room held with open hands, or is it locked in the grip of fear? And now, the last one, in some ways the most revealing of all. Look at your room. Is there an image of Christ, of Our Lady, of a saint you once loved, whose face you chose deliberately because something in it gave you peace? Look more closely. Is it dusty? Is the glass cracked and never replaced? Is the rosary tangled somewhere under 3 layers of other things? Is the image tilted and you stopped noticing when it tilted? Is there a dried palm from 3 Easters ago, brown and brittle, hanging next to a motivational poster you printed from the internet? The abandoned altar is the most painful of all 9 things because it reveals not violence toward the sacred, but indifference. And indifference is more dangerous than rebellion. The person who rages at God is still in relationship with God. The person who simply forgets, who lets the altar collect dust without a second thought, has drifted somewhere very far without ever choosing to leave. A Padre Pio's small monk's cell was immaculate in its sacred objects. There are accounts from the friars who cared for him in his later years. He was elderly, nearly blind, barely able to move without help, and still the crucifix on his wall was never dusty. Still, the image of Our Lady was never turned away from him. He kept it alive, the way you keep a fire alive in winter, with daily attention, with small, faithful acts. There is a story told quietly among the Capuchins of San Giovanni about his final days. His hands, which had borne the wounds of Christ for 50 years, were healing. The stigmata was closing. He could see it, and those around him wept, not understanding. He looked at them from his chair and said simply, "The Lord is calling me home. The wounds were his loan to me. He is collecting what he lent." 3 days later, he was gone. He spent his last evening in prayer before a small statue of Our Lady he'd kept for decades. The brother said he didn't speak. He just looked at her, the way a man looks at the face of someone he has loved his whole life and is about to see again in a different light. What does your gaze find first in the morning? If the holy image in your room has become furniture, visible but no longer seen, then the enemy hasn't needed to remove it. It's already as good as gone. Rehang it. Clean it. Light a candle in front of it tonight. Say one prayer to the saint whose face is on it. Make the altar alive again, because where God is truly honored in a home, darkness has no ground to stand on. Ash Wednesday is coming, and now you know something that most people sitting in that church won't hear from the pulpit, not because the church is withholding it, but because some truths can only reach us in the intimate space between one soul and another. Your bedroom is sacred ground, or it can be. That's the choice in front of you tonight. Padre Pio's life was a war, a real, visible, documented spiritual war. His own room was attacked. There are accounts of objects hurled across it in the night, of him being found on the cold stone floor in the early hours, battered, exhausted, smelling of sulfur and roses at the same time. He described these encounters without drama, without performance, the way a soldier describes a firefight. Matter-of-factly, because for him, the invisible world was simply real as the walls around him. And he kept getting up. Every single morning he kept getting up, putting on those worn brown robes, wrapping those gloved hands around his rosary, and walking to the altar. He carried the wounds of Christ in his hands and feet and sighed for 50 years, so that souls like yours and mine would understand this is not a game. That spiritual reality is more real than anything you'll ever see with your physical eyes. So do this tonight, before Ash Wednesday arrives, before you walk into that church and bow your head and feel the cool trace of ash on your forehead. Walk into your bedroom with new eyes, not eyes of fear, but eyes of faith. Look at what's there. Ask yourself honestly, would Padre Pio walk in here and feel the presence of God? Some things you'll need to remove, some things you'll need to clean, some things you'll need to restore, and some things, those quiet, heavy things you've been carrying for years without ever measuring the weight, those, finally, you'll set down. The ashes are coming. Let them fall on a soul that's already surrendered. Comment below right now, "I clean my house and my soul," and share this with someone you know exactly who, someone who has an enemy hiding in their room and doesn't even know it yet. If this touched you today, I want to invite you to become a member of this community. By joining, you're not just supporting a channel, you're joining a mission to carry these truths to every corner of the world, to every soul sleeping in a room that still needs to be reclaimed for God. Your support makes that possible. Click the join button below, and before you go, one last thing. May Padre Pio intercede for you tonight. May his wounded hands, raised before the throne of God, in this holy season carry your name. May this Lent be the most transformative 40 days of your life. May the ashes on your forehead mean something real, not just a smudge of gray, but the signature of a soul that has decided finally to die to itself and live for God. Go clean your room. He is waiting to fill it.